People over 65 shouldn't get to run a country. Trying to imagine my own grandfather running the country with the same ideals and standards and slightly outdated views that he picked up from his years in college and graduate school in the 1960s would be an absolute disaster. He's an intelligent and progressive man, and was very valuable in his field for years, but soon became very disconnected from the direction the world was moving. Eventually you just run out of steam, or become impatient with things and find it harder to learn new skills and adapt to new ways of thinking. Seeing Scandinavian countries with leaders who are younger and more in tune with the changes in society, and the different challenges current youth and young adults are facing economically is incredibly valuable. They seem to have an energy and drive to progress forward, and it is so much more refreshing than watching these heavily aged candidates try and rally the country together in an effort to tie up their legacy before they die. Edit, this was fun but I'm checking out now, gotta make dinner. I'm glad this provoked some controversy and conversation. I think term limits would be a much more effective approach tbh. I don't believe in age discrimination. There are some older people who are very qualified to be leaders, and they should have that chance. But political systems that are set up in a way that makes the average age of the people in power well into their 60s or so, just isn't a good plan, because many do start to lose their effectiveness by that age. You have a right to vote for a younger candidate, it's just the truth of the matter that an older candidate will most likely be more experienced. Also, restricting anyone from holding office is a very slippery slope that we should do our best to avoid altogether. Is there a reason to ban it outright? Even if what you said was true for 99% of over 65s, it's not like it's that 99% that get voted into office. Let people choose the candidate naturally. Why should there be an arbitrary law to enforce this exact, and arbitrary, age? People have this option with their vote. I don't like them, so they shouldn't be involved in the democratic process. LOL. The ideal age of candidate is probably mid-50s, very experienced yet still mentally alert. Having top leaders younger than 40 is a bit ridiculous. The direction the world is moving what? The world is only moving in the direction that people vote it to go. So what if old grandpa doesn't have the same vibes as you? You are free to vote on a younger candidate you agree in. To me it just sounds like you want to abolish democracy and only want politicians with the same vibes as you. There is a word for that, you know. If the general public don't want to go the way an old man want to, they just won't vote for him. So your argument makes zero sense. You can't just ban older people from the democracy because you don't like their vibes. That's called totalitarianism/dictatorship. His vibes are outdated and not the same as mine, so what? Because someone isn't as progressive as you, they shouldn't be allowed to participate in democracy? I really think you should think it through one more time. I'm curious to know Op's age and how he feels about this opinion 10 years later. I'm 22 and I'm not under any delusion like people of my age or younger that I know better than older people. That they are old and outdated. That is arrogance of the highest order. I think it depends on their mental health. There are lots of people over 65 who still have a sharp mind. This is the definition of ageism. Just because your grandparents are one way doesn't mean all old people are. This is just like saying a minority group can't run a country. If you're part of a democracy, you should be able to run for office and have a say in what the country does. Sounds like you want to engage in age discrimination. What about certain races or genders who shouldn't be allowed to run a country? Ideally, people over 65 would have a realistic grasp on how things should work. I guess the question to you is, why is the old way worse than the progressive way? This sub has the word opinion in it, so that's really what your opinion is. I mean, there are just as many 55 plus in the world who may like the world to stay how it is/was, so you would just cast their choice aside. I bet there are many under 55 who think the same. That's not very progressive of you. Remember, teenagers already know everything and how to fix everything that is wrong with the world and slowly forget it as they age and experience more. So the best bet is to go find a bunch of high schoolers and get them voted into your local political positions and see how great everything runs. Also remember that running a country that is effectively the size and income of a small state in the US is very different than running the US. No offense, but your grandparents are probably not the same caliber as people who hold key positions, not title, but actual responsibilities. Unpopular, disagree completely. Older doesn't mean an idea is bad and new doesn't mean progressive. I don't bow down to my elders, but it's a shame that youth is viewed as a sign of somehow knowing better than others. Young people can be just as dumb as old people, but they have less experience. This is a terrible idea, but it's relatively unpopular, so I guess I have to upvote. Reddit's all for discrimination when it suits their ideals. Classic. Emo age is not the problem. Idiots voting for idiots is. My own grandfather running the country with the same ideals and standards and slightly outdated views that he picked up from his years in college and graduate school in the 1960s would be an absolute disaster. Hey guys, because one guy is unqualified, we shouldn't let anyone run it in from that age, race, or gender. This has never been a problem before, so it won't be this time as well. Imagine thinking Bill Gates isn't intelligent enough to run a country. Imagine having fought in World War II, risking your life and seeing your friends die, just so that as you have retired you can see young people talk about how you shouldn't have the right to vote or to be in a position of power. Absurd. You're missing out on a lot of wisdom by not allowing people who are 65 plus to be in charge. It should be the people's decision for who they want. Upvoted for, what I hope is, a genuine unpopular opinion. Just because you have a grandfather that is incapable of that, does not equate to every person over 65 lacking leadership skills. If you had ever spent any time in the military, you would have observed plenty of men older than that, who can do even more. In the US you have to be over 35 to even run. I just want the best person, don't really care about age, as long as maybe it's like over 75. Someone being younger doesn't necessarily mean their intentions are going to be good for all, and they can still be closed-minded, or ignorant. Someone who is older, has been able to go through a lot of experiences and has witnessed changes within government, the nation, all types of things that someone who's younger can only read about and ask others about how it was back then. Someone like Bernie, whether you agree with him or not, I'm not going to hold his age against him, at least. Hold other things, of course, if you disagree with politics, but I won't disregard him because of his age.